Creative Parenting with Nina Meehan is brought to you by Bay Area Children's Theater.
Myles Nye is a game writer, creator, and designer. He has worked in television, including creating challenges for Survivor and other game shows. He's the owner of Wise Guys Events and was recently a contestant on Jeopardy! Myles is also a performer of improv comedy with Comedy Sports, a tap dancer, and a wedding officiant. Games and puzzles are his primary vocation, and they're his avocation as well. He also has 2 sons. And full disclosure, I've known Myles since he was like 11 years old. So it was such a delight to chat with him about all things games. As we talk about the idea of creativity, it's so important to talk about all of the aspects of creativity: music and dance and visual arts and storytelling and games. Games are a really wonderful way to connect creative play with some kids. And for you who are adults who really connect with games, it's a really wonderful way to bring kids into your creative play and how you like to enjoy your free time. Myles had some wonderful ideas. You'll hear about his thoughts on Uno, but gamify in general is a word we hear a lot, and how we can do that without screens is such a terrific topic to explore. So enjoy Myles. Myles, I'm so glad you were able to join us today. So you are a fascinating person because you literally work in games for a living, like full time. Can you tell us, what does that mean? What do you like about games? Like, why do you work in games? What does it mean to work in games?
Well, I think that being the owner of a small business, being a dadpreneur, my work is in many ways at the 100-mile view, just like anybody else's. To me, it's important that I make playful experiences and that I design games. But if I had a mobile dog washing business instead, which I hope I never do, there would still be a certain amount of things like making the proposals for the clients and this and that would maintain the same. So let's not kid ourselves. We've known each other a long time. Let's not, and I have a great business partner who I started the company with in 2009, who takes care of a lot of the things that I don't want to deal with, like the insurance, like making sure that the taxes are filed appropriately. So, we have a great creative partnership, and Greg is my hero for doing a lot of that stuff. So when I'm doing the part of the work that is the reason why somebody wants to become a game designer, I am creating an experience. Experiential is a buzzword, and we read about the experiential, how people would rather have experiences rather than possessions. Although I'll tell you, people still like their possessions. But when they want an experience, when they want to play a new game, that is my area of expertise. It's my core competency and it's not just that. It's a little bit like a matchmaker. I have to match the game to the group. What's the goal? I have to know what the group is like. I have to know who they are. If you've got a group of engineers who love to compete and who do the same thing every year, I know what to do for them. If you have a group of salespeople who have only ever met on Zoom and are going to get together for their first in-person event, I know what they should play. So part of that is because I make up a lot of games, and I play a lot of games. I digest a lot of games. I read books written by hippies in the 70s. And I go to festivals, and I watch reality and game shows from other countries. So all of that is to say, games are my hobby and my business, and playing new games with groups of people is what I do. And I love my work, in case it didn't show. I've never been...
So we have known each other for a very long time. And so I'm going to ask this question. I might know the answer already, but when did games become a part of your existence?
Well, I think we all play games, and I think a big part of the work that I do is helping to sort of like peel back some of the layers that we have, like nasty wallpaper that's layered onto itself in a 1970s house among the asbestos. It's like we grow in a certain way, and then we compartmentalize play in a certain way. It's okay for me to play a game if it's on my own and it's on my phone, right? That's very commonplace. It's okay for me to play a game if it's with other people, if it is a sport that everybody already knows. very commonplace. But really, once you start playing even like a newish sport, like if I said, oh, I play Quidditch on the weekends or I play circle rules football, already it's like, whoa, are you some kind of crazy hipster from Brooklyn? Like, I get that. Like, I understand. So where did I diverge from the mainstream in playing games? Because I grew up playing Monopoly and the Game of Life and Scrabble like everybody else. And playing the parachute game in elementary school on PE day, where you all hold the big piece of colorful fabric and plunk it up in the air, which, by the way, those books written in the 1970s by hippies that I was talking about, that's the community that invented that game, the New Games movement, and my friend Bernie DeCoven. And so where did I diverge? In theater school, and I went to theater school. That's why I talk this way. I went to UCLA and I was doing plays and I stuck around in LA and I did the working actor thing. But while I was in theater school, I became really interested in theater games and the ways in which play and playing and putting on a play are all kind of like different facets of the same exercise. When we're playing a game, we're getting together to tell a story. When we're putting on a play, we're getting together to tell a story. It's a communal activity. It's embodied. I was the kind of actor who grew up watching Whose Line Is It Anyway before it was on American television. I was watching British Whose Line Is It Anyway, and I thought, oh, this is fun.
Me as well, yep.
And I learned about theater games, and I was like, oh, this is great. And then I got involved at a tech company in San Francisco in the early 2000s that was running like immersive scavenger hunt games on phones. And this was at a time when not only was playing a game on your phone that told you to go around the city and do things really far out, having a phone was so rare that I got a job for this company flying around the country with suitcases full of cell phones, which meant that I never got to go through airport security quickly. So in theater school, I developed this like appetite for the kind of play that is now, really present in my work. And then right after college, I learned that there were businesses that delivered these services to professionals. And so now I've gone like 5 or 6 minutes without yet saying team building. But team building is the application of the games that I do. Corporations hire me for playful events for their team. And I learned that was a thing. And I worked for the company plying my trade for a few years. And they're in San Francisco and they're still in business. I think they've branched out into Zoom games, as did we during the pandemic. But they're called the Go Game. And I worked for them for a few years. Then I hung out my own shingle. And Greg, who I mentioned, who neither of us knew back when we started the business, sharing it with his leaky garage and camping equipment. He would turn out to have an aptitude for CEO work, but he does, and it's a good thing. And, I don't think that I knew that I would have an aptitude for COO work, but I do. And that's it. We're the only two people at the company. So all the other job titles are held by us as well. There's been a healthy, I think like a higher than normal amount of playful design going into our business structure. Because, we practice what we preach.
So speaking of practicing what you preach, so you are also, as you said, you're a dadpreneur. I like that term a lot. And you have 2 fabulous, amazing sons. How does your work in the universe of games, and from your description, I was going to ask a question here about like how games and creativity intersect, but you kind of totally covered that. I mean, we're going to go back to it because obviously that's the thing that I love to talk about. But let's go straight into parenting. Like, you're a dad, you have 2 boys. How does your work inform how you parent your kids? Maybe that's different than somebody who isn't living and breathing game in the same way that you are.
Totally. And again, we've known each other a long time, so there's no reason to lie. So like when I'm having a crappy parent moment, I'm not any better than any other parent who's having a crappy
Oh my gosh,
moment,
100,
right?
all of us, right? Like when I'm having my crappy parent moments, there is like no creative play happening, right? It's like, no, I just need you to empty the dishwasher. Like it just has to happen.
Yeah. Problem, but nonetheless, like we can't be at it all the time. The shoemaker's child has bare feet, or whatever it is. But when it's an asset, like when it's working for me, when it's working for us. I just put this into words recently. I was writing. Somebody asked me to contribute to their zine.
I don't think I knew zine still existed.
You you can make a zine. There's nothing stopping you. Yeah. And so my a friend I went to theater school with, Kate, reached out to me and said, "This is the daddy issue. This is the daddy issue of my zine. You're a dad. Will you write something?" And I was kind of writing like a few dad principles on paper. And boy, it's humbling to see how little paper it fills. Um, One that I feel 100% secure about is if an item is missing, check all the couch cushions first and every place else second, and you'll save yourself a lot of searching. But that only goes so far. And then I put something into words and I looked at it. I was like, yeah, actually, I stand by that, which is like, if you're stuck, if whatever it is, they won't get their shoes on or go out the door, or whatever it is, just pick up a thing like a toy and use it wrong. Like, that's something that I will do. Distraction is a indispensable tool in parenting, and approaching the things that are within arm's reach with the mentality of an improviser is a great way to get out of the rut and start a distraction for both the parent and child. So, I'll pick up a thing, I'll do it wrong, I'll make it a puppet, I'll give it a voice, I horse around, and then we have a laugh, and we can break ourselves out of the struggle that we've gotten in and take off the blinders. I mean, my kids are 3 and 9. And my older kid, he's interested in room escapes. We do room escapes together. And he will like watch YouTube videos because he watches endless amounts of YouTube videos. And he'll watch YouTube videos about room escapes. And he'll come and tell me, "Do you want to know the 5 principles of room escapes?" And I'll be like, "I'm pretty sure I know them, but okay, let's do this." And so then when I reflect them back to him, sometimes he loves it and sometimes it doesn't help. But I'll be like, "You have blinders on right now. Like, you have tunnel vision. You are focused on dessert and everything else is escaping your attention. That's not going to help you in a room escape, and it's not helping you here." So, and I said, tunnel vision makes smart people foolish. It does to me. If I get overly fixed, it's like, maybe my tunnel vision is like, why does he have to put on his shoes? Okay, I guess we'll leave the house without them on. Like, sometimes I'm as guilty of anybody else. But creating that distraction, picking up a thing and shaking it and giving it a voice and doing it wrong, it then takes the focus off of the tunnel vision thing and gives an opportunity for a different kind of engagement. So that's the way that I play. Another like very more practical way is, because I work out of the home, I have all along, there's usually a lot of doodads close at hand. Like beach balls and rubber ducks and mini hula hoops.
This
and
sounds very
bandanas
familiar as a person who's produced children's theater. I really identify with this. Yes. 400 unicorn horns. Sure,
Yeah.
we have that in our living room. No problem.
Yeah. Like, I don't have to go out and get, when we do an Easter egg hunt, like, I've just got like a lot of plastic Easter eggs. And so I could go buy candy, but honestly, I'll usually put other things in them, like notes or dice. So like the Easter egg hunt is like all ready to go, So having those materials at hand, but it's really like, you don't need the materials. Like, you can just like, put a thing on a head, make it a hat, like give the salt shaker a voice. I remember the 100th day of quarantine, like all these skills, both the good parts and the bad part, like I either deployed them or forsook them, during the pandemic, because, the kids were at home for about 400 days. And I remember day 100, our younger child, like, we just needed to get food into him, and he was sitting at the table and he wouldn't eat his food at the table because he didn't want to be alone. So I took a box of noodles and I put sunglasses on the front of the box and I put it in front of him and said, "This is your neighbor. This is neighbor Noodles. Neighbor Noodles will keep you company at the table while your mom and I finish working in the kitchen." And then he sat at the table and he ate food with neighbor Noodles. So that's insane. And it doesn't always work. But if nothing else does, then sometimes I try that. I mean, I had a great improv teacher named Jill Bernard in Twin Cities who said, "Improvisers, we pound the table first, and then we decide why we're angry." So there's a freedom in not overthinking it and making an action and then just sort of trusting that the follow through will be whatever it is, or if not, then you'll just do something else.
I'm hearing a lot of things I just love, but one of the things I'm hearing is that you use, since games are both a hobby and a vocation for you, that you use that as a place of connection with, at least with your older son, it sounds like. I mean, your younger one, he's a little bit younger, but what you're doing with your younger one is you're taking that creative play that you employ every day, and that's why you're good at what you do, and putting it at an age appropriate level for him, and using those same the same things that I would imagine you're doing with adults where you need to shake them up a little bit and, get, as you say, get rid of those blinders. I love that terminology. So I do have to ask you, because you also design games for the television show Survivor. When you're designing games for the television show Survivor, do you ever have your children in mind of, putting them out on the island there?
If you're at shipwrecked on a desert island, the answer is yes. Um, but there is this like community. So like we're all capable of reacquainting ourselves with the impulse to play that we had when we were really little children. This is available to everyone. But there's a community of us who are already like pretty dialed into that. And so like we kind of share a common language or we have some of the same practices. My boss, John Kerhofer, who's the challenge producer on Survivor, supervising producer, I think is his credit. I'm not sure. But he gave me my first job in television. He hired me to help make mazes, puzzles, and obstacle courses on Survivor, and he took a chance on me. And that was in 2007, and I've worked on the show, pretty much ever since. Like now, I've worked on the show because I started as a super fan of the show, and now I've worked on the show more years than not, which is it's a real I don't know. That's some perspective that catches me by surprise every time, even though it's not been true for a while. So John encourages us to foster that mentality because you can always trick something out and make it more sophisticated. But he talks about when they were scouting one of the locations. I think they were in Kenya and they were out in a field. Like, okay, we're gonna do some challenges here. He was like, what would 2 10-year-olds do if they were here? Like, they'd find an anthill, and then they'd pick up a couple of sticks and take some big steps backwards and say, who can throw the stick closest to the anthill? Like, it doesn't have to be that sophisticated. I mean, then you trick it out and it becomes a reality TV show, and suddenly instead of an anthill, it's a target that's 3 stories tall, and instead of throwing a stick, you're operating a slingshot that takes 2 people, and you've got flags and music, and it's on television. You'll get there. But the way you get there, the kernel that you start with, it's really useful to think like a 10-year-old, and that's something that John excels at. Sometimes, not knowing when to turn it off, I suppose, but that's okay. It's true for all of us. And I do, definitely my kids and the things that they horse around with, absolutely, it's reciprocal, right? Like the work that I do, I bring into parenting, and the play that I do with my kids comes into work. Fenton, my older kid, my 4th grader, was really into domino fall downs for a long time. To a certain extent, he still is. We were horsing around with dominoes, and I brought in an idea for Survivor that was a blindfold domino game. And we ended up tinkering with it, and it became an immunity challenge. It's been on the show twice now. And so another guy that I work with, hold on, it'll come to me. It's Mike Mendeo was a challenge consultant, and he brought in some ideas that were. It's fun because I'm an old timer, and when the new consultants come in and they bring 100 ideas and pitch them all on the first day, or pitch things that is like a road that we've walked down a dozen times before, you see kind of the same patterns repeat with the newer consultants. And so he had some sort of beginner, not missteps, but missed opportunities. And then he came in the second week and he brought in, there's the stacking toy that's progressively smaller donuts. And he brought in a beanbag that was also his child's toy because it had pink unicorns all over it. And he's like, try to get this through the donut. And you could force it through, or you could finesse it through. And it was so simple that we then put it on the show, and it's been on the show twice now. So the playthings and the things that my kids end up watching on TV, like those definitely influence the work that I do. I mean, or put it another way, I steal.
I hear that so profoundly, deeply, because of course that's been my world as well, right? Creating and producing shows for family audiences and commissioning new work and writing, like the number of things that have, where it's started with me just watching my kids play that has then ended up on a stage that, then 60,000 people see that same moment. And yes, we enhance it. We add lights, we add sound, we add props, we add custom painting. But what you're describing in terms of that back and forth, and, I wonder, like, if if you and I were accountants, or well, your brother's an accountant actually, or lawyers, or like, I mean, how is it? I feel like there is that opportunity for cross pollination of play, even though, like, for us it's very obvious. But what you're saying about how would a 10-year-old approach this, like, I think that there's something just really inherently powerful about the simplicity of that question, that I hope that parents can find for themselves. Anyway, that's my thought of the day. But I am wondering, okay, so there's a parent out there who's listening, who the last time they played was probably when they were that 10-year-old, right? It's and like we right? Because it's hard. It's hard to play as an adult. It feels like you have to find the time. It feels like it's not efficient and it's not productive. Like all of these words that are supposedly so important to all of us. Where do they start? They have a 5-year-old. They want to bring play. They want to bring games into their world. When they were a kid, they loved games. Where do you start?
Um, my answer is one word: Uno. I think that Uno is a underappreciated game, but it's basically perfect. You don't have to read. It's got the semiotics of play because there's bright colors and you take turns. A huge part of getting started playing games with kids is understanding taking turns and understanding the way I explain it to my kids, because it's super normal to get disappointed if you lose, or to fuss if you lose, or to cheat so you don't lose. Super normal. So I just try to frame it this way: winning and losing just means that the game is over and we get to decide, do we want to play again? You lost? All right, that gives the game an end. It's got to end, right? Game got to end. You want to play again? You want to put it away. You're frustrated? Let's not play again. Let's put it away. Or you're frustrated and you want to try again? Great. Good thing you lost. That means we get to start again. Redeal the cards. So starting out playing games with the kids, they need to learn about taking turns. They need to learn about winning and losing with grace. Hopefully you don't say that. You just say, you lost. No. It just means that the game is over and we can play again if we want. Games are a series of interesting choices. If it doesn't have interesting choices, it's not a game. If there are choices but they're not interesting, it's not a game. If there's only one choice, it's not a game. A lot of things people play as games are not really games. But the choices end when the game ends. The game ends and you now have the choice. Do you want to play again or not? So yeah, Uno, it travels well. It is theoretically playable by an infinite number of people. And I'll play it at the dinner table. Like, we'll just, like, if our son is like pestering us to play a game, he wants to play something a little bit more elaborate, that's more set up. I have a games closet with a million games. He likes some of the involved ones, and he's asking to start a game at 6:30 at night that I know takes 20 minutes just to set up. It's not suitable. I say, let's play Uno. And it's a banger. It's got a lot of replay value. Sometimes the games are very short, and when they're long, the tension builds, and it's kind of thrilling. So yeah, I recommend, if you want to get started, I recommend playing Uno. Yeah, I mean, there's like, if that's a hit, there are other games that kind of tick the same box. There's a game that's for slightly older kids. And so then if you're like, well, I want to buy some games, Ben Dominoes is another one that I strongly recommend to play with little kids. And then just slightly older, Outfoxed, which is published by Foxfire Games.
We love Outfoxed. Yeah, that's...
Oh,
yeah.
it's a beautiful production game. But if you don't want to buy things and you just want to play, kind of that same mentality of, like, you can go outside and you can throw a thing until it's closer to a thing. Or, you can frame something as a competition that's like a game. The other day, Fenton needed some outdoor time because he'd been on screens for a long time, and he was down. He was like, yes, I'll go outside. But he'd already jumped on the trampoline, and he didn't want to do this, and he didn't want to do that. And we've recently been giving him more trust and responsibility in terms of leaving the house. Like, there's a park down the way that he can go to on his own. And so there's a tree along the way. And okay, this reflects, like, sort of the lens that I view things with as in parenting, because there's a tree that you walk past on the park, on your way to the park, that has like a branch that's been cut off and just forms like a palm-sized stump that's hanging right over the path. And I named it the high five tree. And so we high five it as we walk past. And so I said, Fenton, how fast can you run to the high five tree and back? And he was like, oh, okay, let's set a timer. So we timed him, and he ran, and he came back, and he had roses in his cheeks, and he was like outside for 4 minutes. But it was like we all got what we needed out of that. So, creating the challenge. Oh, I bet. And then that's a parenting technique I see a lot of parents doing. Oh, I bet you can't do this before I do that. Oh, I bet you can put your shoes on faster than I can. So, you're introducing the aspect of play, of competition. So, I feel like within reach. It's something that we can try. If someone's looking for resources, those are things that you can try. And if those are taking you to a good place, trying to think. I don't know what games do you recommend for parents who are like just getting started?
Well, what I love about what you're talking about. So we do a lot of, because my oldest is 13 and my youngest is 5. So I'm always looking for games where we can play like across the board. Our current obsession is a game called Guacamole. Don't know if you know this one, but it's all visual based, but it's really complex puzzling. So that one has been a huge hit. Sushi Go is another one, and then Meadow adores Go Nuts for Donuts. I don't know if you guys have ever played this one. She ignores the points and inevitably ends up beating everybody because she is choosing her donut based on which one looks best. Um, where everybody else is trying to do the math in their head, and she's like, no, I want the French crawler because it's pink. And then bam, she gets like 35 points and the boys are like, I have like 19. So there's a really fun lesson there too, and just like, this is a game, we take it lightly and we have fun. So those are those are for like, sort of family game nights. But what you're talking about, like, hey, how fast can you run to that tree? Can you right now we have smoke where we live, so it's like we're all stuck inside. So we currently are figuring out who can wriggle underneath the dishwasher, because that's where I'm at today. It's like but like, the thing that you're talking about, the idea of like a high five tree is really seeing the world through that mindset. I'm looking at your glasses and I'm just like, I feel like you have play in those lenses. And that is just so and that's just so powerful. So, this has been just phenomenal to hear what you're talking about, and it's been really a joy for me. I have known you forever, so it's been so cool to hear sort of some of the more like philosophical parts of what you do. But I'm just, okay, I'm going to leave you with, what's the one gem that we want to impart to parents about playing games with their kids? Because we're all about creativity here at the Creative Parenting Podcast, of course. And everything you're describing gives moments for accessing creativity for the parent, accessing it for the kids, giving opportunity to open those hard conversations around winning and losing. Like, there's so much just beauty in what you're talking about that's so powerful. So, what's the one gem, Myles? Go for it.
All right, so this ties in with our personal history. Okay, and this is a little bit of a long walk, but
Let's take
you
the walk.
know me. So there's there's the quote from Mary Poppins: "In every job that must be done, there is an element of fun." The job is a game. So my only criticism with that is that quote tends to get trotted out whenever there's like an article written about a woman in the games industry. It never gets applied to men. So I think that it's a little bit gendered. And also, what's funny is like in business like ours, I had an aha moment when I realized, oh, the nature of my business is that for every element of fun, there is a job that must be done. Right? Like I have it backwards because I run games for a business. But for the non-gendered version, or the flip side, if you will, we have to look to different source material. We look to Guys and Dolls, a play that you and I were in when we were teens or tweens, in which they sing, "Gotta have the game or we'll die from shame." That's nugget. But that's not a practical application. So the practical application that's the nugget for the creative parents is dice. Dice have the semiotics of play. Dice represent randomness, and so they are a way to break ourselves out of our butt. So if there's a child who will not do the thing, or if you can't get yourself to a place, or you just need to occupy a child for a little while, rolling dice is a really satisfying somatic. It's got a noise component. It's got a tactile component. So you say, okay, we are going to roll this six-sided die, and we're going to subtract 1 from it, and that's how many minutes you get to this or that. Or we're going to multiply it by 2, and that's how many cookies you get to this or that, or whatever. So you grab it, like if you can't agree, you grab the dice. You're the grown up. So if you have a grasp of math, you can make the number turn out the way that you want in a way that the child is not going to understand. We're going to roll this 6-sided die, divide it by 2, and round it up. That'll get you a number from 1 to 3. So like that's how many cookies you. So that you're not rolling a 20-sided die. And look, if your child rolls a natural 20 and they get to eat 20 cookies, then it was just meant to. But yeah, if you like getting ourselves out of the rut, finding a way to fight the tunnel vision and the blinders, roll some dice. I have dice in my hand just because I fidget with them. They're not normal dice. They're like Big Julie's dice. They are black and white dice that was given to me by an intern from Germany, where they have an attitude regarding play that we don't begin to have time to get into. But yes, got to have the game or we'll die from shame. Be like Big Julie, find some dice and roll them,
I love
if
that
they ain't got no
so
sense.
much. All right, we got 3 question speed round, and then we are wrapping it up. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
If you could invent one completely crazy thing that doesn't currently exist and would make parenting a little bit easier, what would it be?
It would be a sunscreen applier.
Oh, so good. Yes. Yes. All right. Question 2. What is the first creative product, like music, book, painting, play, that you can remember feeling inspired by or connected to?
The tabletop board game Kill Dr. Lucky by James Ernest. Cheap-ass game 001.
Nice. What is the one word or phrase you say most often to your kids?
I don't know if it's most often, but I stole this one from my wife's cousin, and we are using it a lot and getting great traction with the 3-year-old. Can you ask me that in a voice that shines instead of a voice that whines?
So good. Oh, that's so good.
Thank you.
Myles, you are phenomenal. I cannot thank you enough for joining us today. And what's your website so if folks want to book you for a corporate event?
You can go to wiseguys.events. That is a URL.
Wiseguys.events. All right. Myles, you are a rock star. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, and thanks to all the listeners.
Well, that was fun. It was so great to talk to Myles. I mean, obviously, he's an old friend, but he also is just such a genius when it comes to games and how to use them. I know I'm going to invest in another version of Uno. I have it, but we've lost all the cards I recently discovered. But I would love to know, what do you do with game nights? We love game nights at my family. Each kid gets to choose a game, and my youngest, who's 5, she often can't play the one that the 13-year-old wants, so she teams up with a parent or her middle brother. And then the one who's 5, she'll choose one that maybe is a little simple for the older kids, but it's such a great opportunity for them to remember where they were at developmentally when they were her age. So it's just game nights are just so much fun and such a wonderful way for families to connect. I hope you let us know what you think about the pod, and please rate, review, send us feedback on Instagram at nmeehan or at BAC Theater. We love having you listen, and I really just want to say thank you for the first, 6 episodes or so. You guys have just made this such a wonderful success. So please hit us up. Let us know what you're interested in. More about creative games, more about music, storytelling. What forms of creativity do you want to explore? Thanks so much.